where you can hit balls. Just sort of practice hitting different shots, hitting your different clubs. But this really isn't my favorite, or I think the best way to practice. Yikes, 95% shot. Just kind of sitting out here on the typical driving range. It's the best way still to practice the complete tee shot, I think. So if you want to practice your tee shots, this is probably a good spot. But if you wanted to practice some of the other irons, you can do it, but the problem being that how much impact does the fact that you're playing off of a tee change the distance and maybe the ease at which it goes the direction? I don't know if there's any really sort of impact from that. I do think you get about a 2 or 3 more yards out of the shot. So this isn't where I like to typically practice even my complete shots. What I prefer to do is this. Let's go back to the main screen. You're on training. I like to go to the chipping practice. Now, obviously, I am on a PS4, so this could be different if you're on PC or Xbox. I'm showing you the way I do it here. So you can practice your chipping here, but you also can practice your regular shot, your full swing shots from the chipping training or the chipping practice screen. You hit the 0 or the O or whatever you want to call it, the button to the right on your pad, and it gives you the cursor to put the ball wherever you want. So what I do, you can see that right up to the north here is the actual driving range. If you use your R2, you can get it to go down. And what I do is I come right over here to the right side of the driving range area and put my ball about 2 yards in front of the trash can that's sitting on the side. I think that's really supposed to be a trash can on the side of the driving range. I put it here because you can shoot out at the 50, the 100, all the way up to the 250-yard markers, and they are the distance, the regular distance, as if you were lined up on the driving range and you were actually driving. So they will be the right distances from about right here. So then you push the X and it gives you the ball here. You're just turned around the wrong way. Just use your lift analog stick, turn around so you're pointing towards the range. It gives it's green fringe, but you get basically the same as a perfect fairway shot, clean lie fairway shot. And they go the right distances. So that's the 100. I go down to 94. Here's the key, though, because if you make one shot, it would turn you around the other way and it would follow the ball. And you don't want it to do that. So you hit the options button on the right side of the controller. You go down to auto mulligan and you turn it on. Now, when I hit this shot, it'll return me right to this spot. And it's like I'm on the driving range. The only difference is I'm actually hitting off the grass rather than off a tee while I practice my irons, which I think is more valuable. It's about 90 yards. You see it was about 10 yards away from the 100. Let's see if I can show you how close this is to being right on the right yardage for the markers out there. This is a 108, so this, see that? 102, it landed right behind. I may be a yard off, but you can kind of try to get it in the right spot where it's exactly 100 at the 100, but it's somewhere around a yard or two in front of that trash can. Get these markers to be right on. And you can just sit out here and you can practice the various shots. %, not what I want. But as you can see, they're pretty close. 160 yard club, 8 miles into the wind, aiming at the 150. Should come out there pretty close to it. It's just past it. It's 153. This is probably a yard too close. So it's really, the 150 is probably at about 149-ish, but close enough. I could move it back another yard and maybe be right on it. But you can practice the shot. And also, too, you can use those markers as tools to try to see how close you can hit. The only difference here is that when you're doing this, you are not landing on a green. So the rollout and that sort of thing is not as good necessarily. But stay tuned for a minute, and I can tell you how you can solve that as well. But as you can see, it's the right distance. But say you want to, I would much rather be hitting into a green so I can practice real approach shots with my irons and such. Well, you can do that from here. Now I move it out here into the actual area of the driving range. Let me go up a little bit because I can go faster. Now it's limited a little bit because I can put it into about 160, sometimes depending on which flag you aim at. You can maybe get down to about 135, 140. But you can't practice maybe the 108 club or the 122 club in, the wedges. But from the 9-iron up, you can sit here and hit into flags on the chipping green. Same principle. Move it over here to 160 yards. Now I'm aiming back at the green. If we go back here to options, it's still on auto mulligan. So it's not going to move forward and give me a new shot on the chipping green. It's going to continue to bring the ball right back to here so I can practice this shot. If you look at the green, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 pins you could shoot at. This one's shooting at the longest one. I can practice that shot in. Now I'm landing in a green. The only negative thing necessarily about this is that on the basic chipping green here that you land on, I'm assuming it's the 144s is the speed, because on the putting practice that's the speed on just the generic chipping on the generic putting green on the generic practice range. That's what it is. I'm assuming these are 144s. So you may not get an accurate indication from here, the true rollouts. But so I can name it this flag now. It's a long. Let's see if I can, with this wind, can I make this 136 even with the wind at my back? Can I cut it down enough to be close to this pin? It's getting there. Almost having to go all the way to the slider, all the way up the slider, I call it. Loft, de-loft. That's pretty good. But I get a feel too for, you can get a feel for, depending on the wind, how much do you need to loft something to get it to come back a certain amount of yards. I hit about 132, 33, so I have an 8 mile an hour at 11 o'clock, so maybe I'm getting 6 miles of wind with me, behind my back. It plays at 165, so it's basically playing right about 160, 159-ish, and if I go up to the F, the line in the F for fade on the loft, it takes me down to about bad shot. Got it very slow, so that one's harder, but it still went about 132-ish. Now I'm at 9 miles an hour, though. Still took a lot off that, about 131, even with 10 mile an hour wind behind me. Fast. That one went about a lot further. You can kind of see the range you're hitting with different. So again, 138, 139-ish. But when it was about 6 mile an hour wind and there's behind me and it's about 5 yards higher than 162, so it's playing 165-ish, I was landing at about 132. So at the F, on normal conditions, I'm just guessing a little bit because we don't have zero wind here, that I'd probably be hitting at about 132-ish with zero wind. The base is kind of about on this club that if I go all the way up to the F on the loft, I'm going to hit that about 131, 132-ish is the base before I start making other adjustments. And if you wanted to move back for longer clubs, just move back further. The other thing you can do here is we sometimes don't care for the fact that the wind is constantly in a particular direction really hard or something. Maybe you don't want to practice that, or you want to create wind where there is none, but it's not giving you wind. You could you could come over here. Okay, I think this is going to be rough. So this is heavy rough. So I wouldn't go over here to do it unless you want to practice. You can practice heavy rough shots. I'm on a hill. No, this isn't too much of a hill. I could move it a little bit to the side there and put it up in the yellow if I wanted. Practice hill. But again, I can practice and get a good feel for the rough. How far is it going to go in the rough with this club? So it landed at 186. And that's at a basically 78 to 85, so approximately about 80%. At 80% out of the rough, my 225 is going to get me $180-ish. My pitching wedge. Get me 124-ish, 125-ish. Now, granted, I'm in the wind, so you probably would want to, kind of make note of how much you're getting from the wind. Hitting a little bit into the tree here, so this isn't ideal, but you can move it around. But I think you get the idea. Again, if I want the wind to be a different direction, I can move out and shoot this direction. And now I have roughly a 9 o'clock wind. Aim at the tree. Right at that tree. You can kind of get a feel for how much it's going that other direction. Now, if you still wanted to change the direction the wind is giving you, I don't want to practice wind shots the way it's lined up on the range going back into the greens or at the top of the range hitting into the regular range. I can put the ball over here on the actual range. I'm getting fairway, but I want the wind to be going 3 o'clock. Just have to have a demarcation point that you're aiming at so you can have some sort of point of reference. I'll use that tree. Or the tractor there. It looks like it was off by 3 or 4 boxes. That, maybe. So even though the game is giving you a particular wind, I can make movements to where I put the ball and I can change the direction of the wind. And I can move as it moves to keep it where I want it. And you can move where you're at and maybe find a tree based on the club you're using that it lands near that tree. And that way you'd have an easier time. You don't even have to eyeball, is it in line with it like I had to do there. I'm not sure this one's the right distance. Actually, that's a little close. Maybe that tree is the better tree. Maybe that one right there. And so I'm lining up here to try to hit that tree. Or just in front of it. Pretty much in line with it. It's probably about 2 squares to the right when it landed. So that's a good idea too. I think that works well. Let's go one more time though back up here to the base of the range. Again, you don't have to remember anything particular. You just know that it's about a yard or two in front of that trash can. You can't go here. It won't let you go actually on here. It'll only let you put you onto this green fringe turf. About a yard or two in front of the trash can, so the distances will be right. Again, I don't have to redo the mulligan on, no matter where I move it, until I go back to options and take it off. It will always be on mulligan, and the ball will return to wherever I was hitting the ball from. Which is good. I wish there was a mulligan actually out on the course, and I will show you later in this video how you can produce that mulligan on the course for a limited amount of times, where out here it's just unlimited. But that's a little bit later. Hang on. So here, one of the things I like to do when I am on the range, instead of just hitting one particular club, I like to recreate the real situation. Now, here you're hitting off the ground, and that's not so great for the driver, but it does give you great practice because it gives you a really good lie here, but it's still a very skinny. You see that blue, how skinny it is? So you have to hit much better than you usually do. It's almost like a batter who puts the weight in the on deck circle and then takes it off. I'm using a much harder blue cone. But what I like to do is think, okay, I'm hitting a 400 par 4. I only got a 95%. So 263. So 263. So I have 147 with the wind in me. So I'm going to play about to that. So right there, I'm going to play like I need to hit to the 150 there. I'm going to line up my shot to try to hit to that marker, the 150 marker. So I'm going to give it some D-loft, go over to the side a little bit. And now I'm hitting my approach shot. What I like about this style of practice, and then I'll do another one. Okay, I'm doing a par 5. Okay, I'm doing a par 3, 180 yards. What I like about this practice is rather than hitting one club over and over, it mimics a real golf game where I'm hitting one club, typically a driver, often, and then I'm hitting an iron. Driver, iron. Or maybe I think of it, I'll treat it like, hey, it's a 400-yard par hole, but it won't let me hit the driver. I have to hit the 5-wood off the tee because it's the fairway is short. So I'll just kind of think of those type of things and just act like I'm playing a hole and go, like I said. So now I'm going to say, okay, I'm on a 480-yard par 4. And obviously it goes less on here. So 480, it was 270. So I'm at 210. So 210. So let's say I got a 211 club. And right, I said 480, and I think it went about 270. I might be wrong, but you get the idea. Now I come back. I hit my 5 hybrid. And that mimics the manner in which I would have to be playing a hole. So I like that kind of practice too. I think that gets you, it's a little better than just hitting the two wood 10 times, or hitting the driver 10 times, hitting the 9-iron 10 times. Even though I do that as well at times, especially if like maybe I have a club that I seem to be getting some bad tempo shots on, say during a round, and maybe those bad tempos are all around my short irons. Well, then I'll go back out here and I'll hit several lob wedges in a row trying to groove that tempo. And also, another thing I like to do, and I even do this when I'm actually on the course, but if you're having tempo issues, I really like the idea of, and this is something from Nick Faldo I learned for real golf, and that's tempo. The temp is your backswing. The po, which is a little faster, is the front swing or the downswing. And now, what happens is if you're still having tempo issues, you'll end up naturally speeding up the sound of your voice to match what really works. And then once you groove it, that tempo will be right on. It seems silly, but I'm surprised at how often it works at getting your tempo back on track if you're having issues. Tempo. That I got to slow, so it didn't work there. But most of the time, it actually is a very effective approach. Tempo. You see that? I'm getting pretty close to the middle there on those. Tempo. My swing plane isn't great right this second, but I am getting good tempo. Also, another thing I like to do is if I'm having issues with, say, a slow backswing, it's probably because I'm hesitating a little bit too much at the top. Or if I get a 95, it's because I'm transitioning here and I'm starting my backswing too early. So if I'm having those kind of issues, I like to really make sure I'm looking very closely at the backswing. And I could put even those two together. Tempo. Tempo isn't perfect here. I'm trying to, if you're trying to get right in the middle there of the blues, I'm at the edge at the bottom. Tempo. Better swing plane, good tempo. But try those two things. Another thing too, sometimes with the swing plane is not very great, I notice, and it shouldn't really matter, but I'll look at the ball. And that sometimes gets the swing plane a little better. Maybe there is some sort of eye-hand coordination thing that is if you're looking at that ball, your hand maybe moves a little bit left or right and maybe does a better job than it was. But right now, I'm not really having any issue with any of these sort of things. But when you are, you might try that. The tempo, there's a tempo issue. So maybe the next shot. Tempo. Center cut at the top. Tempo. Make sure I'm looking at the top of the swing here. So that's what I would do on this range. Let me quit this and show you something else I would do that I like to practice. Let's say, let me go this direction. Show you another thing. So that is the main practice area. It's just the generic one that comes with the game. The greens are going to be 144. But let's say I'm over here and, okay, my next event here at the Birdies and Beagles, you can actually go into this right here. Got this next event that's coming up. I don't really want to play right this minute, but that's okay. And you could also do this from play a local round and do the same thing and set it up with any course you want to look at. But I'm just using this one as an example because say you want to practice on the practice area for the particular course you're playing in a society event. Maybe it's TGC Tours, or here I'm doing Birdies and Beagles, or the Money Tour, which is another big one. So start your round, but I'm not going to play the round, but I'm going to actually go to that practice facility for this particular course, just like we went to the generic ones from the main screen. Server a little slow. I wonder if they make when or if they make another one of these for the new console. I've heard the PS5 will be. It doesn't have higher. It doesn't have higher specs than the new Xbox One. But one thing it is better at is that the speed is very fast. It's supposed to have great load times. Now, because it has a bigger CPU and it'll be handling larger programs, I don't know if that'll balance out or we'll still see an advance, but it would be great if we don't see as long as we do here on the loading screens. Obviously, the internet and your internet and the servers capability will all still play a big role. PSN servers will play a big role. So here, you just hit the options button, course details. It puts your cursor on the practice one. It's also a great way you can see the particulars of the course if you didn't catch it on the loading screen into the course. Practice. Chipping, because I like that one the best. It exits you out of the tournament. You can go back at any time. You can go back to that same loading screen. You're in the same place. So now the chipping green is a little different. It's similar, but it's a little different. Right? And you can chip from here. You can hit a shot. And it should, somewhat mirror the conditions on that particular course. Now, in my experience, it really doesn't. Also, a good idea might be to go check the greens first. And then you would have to come back in to make sure the greens are a different, because it'll be a different type. But if I'm going to play this course, I think it said fast, so they're probably 163s. Now, when I move the tee around, same thing. Slightly different surroundings or whatever. I noticed the ones on the chipping greens, though, are a little bit duller on the actual chipping green here than they are on, say, the generic one. But here, I can put it 2 yards, yard or two in front of it. Put the ball down. Turn on mulligan. Now, I'm hitting into the green, and it's the green speed that I'll be playing on the course I'm trying to practice for. So I'll get a feel for how balls hit into the green speed that I'll be playing for that first round. Obviously, your society administrator for the society you're going to play in could change those settings for future rounds, but often they use the same putting surface speed for the duration of a tournament. And if they change, you can always go in and do this again. Out here. 148. hit shots to the various holes, 95%. That's great. So maybe use one of my gimmicks that I said I have. So I'm going to really make sure, look at the shoulders, make sure I'm hitting the top to make sure I get that 100%. And I did. 136 look good. It's not rolling out. The short irons aren't rolling out real long here. Even with the wind behind me, they're not really rolling out too bad. And as with the generic one from the main menu, on this chipping green, I can move the ball anywhere I want to go. .292 yards. Can't even get it to the green from here. Practice the driver off the deck. Little trick unrelated to practicing. You put the slider, as I call it, or the loft all the way up to the top, you get a couple extra points. Makes that line even harder, but practicing under harder conditions that you're going to play in. It's a tiny pencil-thin blue cone. Goes off to the left. Almost got to the green there from 292. I find that as a right, and other right-handed players have told me the same. I do see, even if you can get it perfectly straight, my last shot was not perfectly straight. It faded off a little bit to the right anyway. But even if you can get it straight down that line, like the bottom half was there, if I could do that even on the back, on the top, it tends to drift a little bit to the right on these tee shots off the deck. It's just hard to hit that shot really stable. Right. So that's another way to practice. I like to do it. And you can do the same thing out here too. You could go up close to the range and hit out here. You can move the ball around to change the wind direction, just like I showed you on the generic one. All those things that I did there, you could do here. I'm going to show one last thing that I think is very beneficial. Let's say you're going to go play a local match. I'm not going to change the course. Or the conditions or anything. Let's continue. Cancel. Change the course because I don't want it to. I don't want to start around. I guess it wouldn't have mattered to start a round that I was in. My play. We'll just go play one that I just recently played, or one that it gives me on the first page here. Of course, it takes 2 minutes to have it come up, which is not what I was looking to have happen. Okay. It's a hard course. Okay. Pin 2 is fine. So you got here.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the Golf Club 2019 featuring PGA Tour. My name is John. Thank you very much for spending your time here with us. We appreciate every minute of it. Right now, let's get down to that first tee and see what you can
Hitting
do.
a practice round.
So far, so good for this one.
Okay, that drive's good. Hit my approach shot.
Looks like
Oh.
some rough coming up here.
Shoot, I went too long. That's not good. But let me say I want to practice that approach shot again. There is no mulligan on a practice round, but declare unplayable. Hit your L1 button. It takes it back to the previous spot. Now I can hit that shot again. Now, the max is like 7 or 8 over. It's usually like on a par 4. I think it's 11. I think you might get 12 or 13 on a par 5. You might only get 10 on a par 3, something like that. But you can basically, okay, hey, I want to practice this shot. Now, this one's a very basic shot and really probably wouldn't matter. But, okay, let me see here. I want to see how the 68 does. Will it get there? Well, will the 68 get there? Oh, no, that's not good. Even with the little wind behind me. Options, declare unplayable. Once it gives you the cursor, hit L1, goes back to the same spot. I guess the 73 is the club, even with the little wind with me. I'll go ahead and still go up on the slider a little bit because I always try to get it to stop a little bit better than they do usually on these pitch shots. Ooh, slow. That's not good. Man, I think I can do better. Let's see how it works.
12-footer here.
Back to the spot. A little bit bumping the slider. At bad tempo, so let me try my technique. Tempo. Got a good. I didn't get good tempo.
I think this one's
Wow.
destined for the
That's
bunker.
not good either. Again, options. Declare playable. Once it gives you the cursor or the X, L1, enter. I'm back at the same spot. Let's see if I can get a good shot here. Let me 10. That's a good shot.
9-footer here. See what we can do.
So 1 second, I'm going to contact my friend. Might go play in a few minutes because I'm almost done with this. I was going to be done with this video in a second. So, that's great. So I can just play this putt. Another thing I can do here. So I probably can't do it on this particular hole because I've reached the max. So.
Ouch. Ouch.
But I do want to show you one other thing that
exceeded
this
your
can
shot
also
limit.
allow you to
7 over
do.
par means we're going to go ahead and move on to the next hole. See you there.
The key here is if it
Well,
is a
just
rated course
letting
that
you
has had
know it's
over
a bit
300
windy out
plays,
there, so
which you
keep
can
that in
tell
mind as you go off the tee.
from the start, then you go through all the 18 holes. Just don't hit the ball in on the 18th hole, and it won't affect your handicap if you don't want it to. But this, I'm going to show you even a little bit different thing. So I showed you how you can practice the approach shot, but you also can do that for You're putting. So this is great, but look, this is an undulating green. So, declare unplayable. Ball in hand. I'm limited, but at least I can back up here and check out this over here.
All right, nice little 2-foot putt.
Oh, it didn't. I forgot to hit. I hit the wrong button.
Putting from around 16 feet out.
There we go. I want to practice a longer putt. It's limited. You can't hit it from anywhere.
Nicely done for the par.
But I can kind of feel out where that is, you know.
Keep you at 7 over for the round. Coming up.
That's all I had for you today. I was just wanting to do a practice and show that this is an interesting way to play and practice some of the things I do.